Morning. I'm reading today from Isaiah 60, 1 through 6. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. For behold, darkness will cover the earth, and deep darkness the peoples. But the Lord will rise upon you, and his glory will appear upon you. Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. Lift up your eyes around about and see. They all gather together, they come to you. Your sons will come from afar, and your daughters will be carried in the arms. Then you will see and be radiant, and your heart will thrill and rejoice, because the abundance of the sea will be turned to you. The wealth of the nations will come to you. A multitude of camels will cover you. The young camels of Midian and Ephah, all those from Sheba will come. They will bring frankincense and gold, and will bear good news of the praises of the Lord.
I'm reading from Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him, and calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for it has been written by the prophet, 'And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel.'" Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chest, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road.
May God bless the reading, hearing, and understanding of these words this morning. As was mentioned earlier, today is Epiphany. And we are going to talk about this Epiphany and everything that comes with it from a certain point of view. Because we do this every year. I've stood here for 3 years now, and for 3 years, we've given a sermon about Epiphany. So after a while, you kind of lose takes. And so you have to come up with different things. And so we're going to do this. But every year, it's the same thing. January 6th is Epiphany. This is the day that the wise magi from far away come before the Christ child and recognize him as he is supposed to be. We talked about this a little last week. They see this poor child, born to poor parents, and yet they see him as he is supposed to be, not as he is there. The word Epiphany means the manifestation of Jesus Christ to the Gentiles through the Magi. It's not a direct meaning, but that is what it's come to be known. Jesus is now known to people outside of the Jewish faith. These magi that have traveled so far are the first Gentiles to see the Christ child. They came from a distant land. They knew nothing about the traditions of the Jewish people. They knew nothing about the meanings of their text. They didn't understand the words, and yet they followed the star. They felt enough. They felt the call to follow God's sign, to see the child born for the world. This is the day that we celebrate. This is the day that we, as non-Jewish people, meet the Christ child. And this is also the day that our nativities become complete. There are many ministers out there in this world, and you know some of them, and they think that they are the funniest people ever to step foot into a church. They like to make jokes. They like to joke around and talk. And it's no different when it comes to Epiphany, because every Advent season there is one joke that almost every minister tells, and it gets told over and over again, and it was told to me this year, and I told it to someone else. The joke is simple. As you walk into a church and you see a nativity scene, and it's not yet even Christmas Eve, and yet there are 3 wise magi sitting there. What you do is you grab them and you move them to the other side of the room, because that's where they're supposed to be. They're not there yet. See, I told you, we're not funny. But this happens. It happened to me as we decorated. Someone came to me and said, I thought about doing that. And I said it to someone as we were putting up another. It's just what it is. But if y'all would travel around and look this year at the nativity scenes, and you would see a nativity scene without the 3 wise men sitting there, you would think that something was wrong. You would say to yourself, there's something missing there, because the wise men were not there. This is us putting our pop culture, our current way of thinking into our religion. Because everywhere you look, pageants, plays, songs, TV shows, stories, the wise men are there at the birth. It's not so. But that's okay. But that is us putting our pop culture into religious stories. Now, and I'm going to prove this really quickly. Everyone, I hope, has seen the nativity scenes outside of every McDonald's in town as you drive by. And they are great, and they are wonderful, and they celebrate the story, but if you'll notice, there's 3 wise men in every one of those nativity scenes, and that's fine. But if you also notice, there is a small child in each one of these nativities carrying a drum. This is the little drummer boy. Now, I challenge you now, go through all of the birth narratives that we have and show me where a drummer boy is at the stable. This is our pop culture coming into our religion. Because a popular song was written that talked about a little drummer boy presenting his gift to the Christ child. And so now all over Springfield, a little drummer boy is at the nativity scene. Our culture getting into our religion. But this morning, we have the Magi finally there. The problem is now the shepherds are probably gone. But we're not going to discuss that. We're going to move past that. And now our nativity is complete. And they have made their way to see the Christ child. And why? They saw a sign in the sky, and to use their words, they want to pay him homage. That was the word that they used, that word, homage, which means to pay respect and to give reverence. Now, this is not the only time that the word is used in our text. It's used to others, another time referring to the Magi. But King Herod also mentioned that he wanted to go to pay homage to the same child. Used the same word. But we know, because we have read ahead, we know that the word he used really didn't have the same meaning as the words the Magi were using. This Christmas, I spent some money on my little nephew, as I am probably going to do for the rest of my life. And I bought him for Christmas what I wanted him to have. I didn't even ask his parents, and I bought him Disney DVDs. Because every child should grow up watching Disney cartoons. And so I bought him 5, the 5 that I wanted him to have. And one of them happened to be Aladdin. And it's a wonderful movie, and perhaps because I had Aladdin on the mind, when I picture Herod sitting there talking to these wise men, I see Jafar sitting there, long face, skinny lips, a skinny, evil, curved smile with his fingers kind of doing all of this and saying to the wise men, I too want to pay him homage. Now that doesn't sound very friendly. And so the Magi and Herod are not talking about the same thing. They're using the same words, but they're not talking about the same thing. Different meanings, different intonations of the word. The Magi brought with them gifts to pay homage to the child. Gifts that would show what the child is and would foreshadow what the child would be. We know the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold represents royalty. We know this. Frankincense represents the divinity of the child and the priestly duties that he will have as he grows up. And myrrh. Myrrh is brought to those who are dead. It is an oil, a spice that you put on the dead. This foreshadows the crucifixion of the Christ. These gifts are brought to bring respect to the child, to bring reverence to this child, to bring homage to the child. Because they saw the sign, they read the words, and they understood what God had planned for this child. And so they brought the gifts to respond in kind with generosity, thanks, and love. And then we have Herod. We have Herod who wants to bring only death to this child. We have Herod who is taking his own fears, his own insecurities about this new king of the Jews and placing those on the child. For Herod is scared that the child will come after his own power. But we know that this is not true. We once again have read ahead, because if Jesus wanted to, he had the power to overthrow. He had the power to rule. But that's not what he did. And that's not what the scriptures say he will do. But Herod, his own insecurities, put them on the child. His thought, his culture, on to Jesus. He was worried about what he thought Jesus would be, and not what God was telling the world that Jesus was. Both spoke the same word, but both did not understand the complete role of this child. And today we have a wonderful advantage over what they had then, because we know. We know the stories. We know what the child will grow into. We know what the child will do for the world. We know what the child will do for us. Yet at times, we still put our own insecurities, our own fears, our own pop culture onto the Christ child. We have the words from Jesus. We have the words from Christ himself that tells us what he is, that what he believes in, what he teaches, what he does in the world, and yet we still skim over it and put our own words in the mouth of Christ. As the new year begins, are we going to allow the world and our thoughts and the thoughts of others dictate what we give to Jesus? The characteristics that we ascribe to Jesus? Or are we going to let the actions, the words, the thoughts, the feelings, the love dictate how Jesus is represented to us? The words that we use in our day-to-day life can mean everything, like the Magi. Or the words that we use can mean absolutely nothing, like Herod. But at times, it's what comes after those words. It's what we do after we say we are going to do something. It is how we show the world that we are followers of who Christ was, who Christ is, and who Christ always will be. Because it's not up to us to dictate through our eyes what Christ is to say. It's up to us to hear what Christ does say, to act on it. We must not pay Herod's homage to this child. We must pay, now and forevermore, the Magi's homage on this child who grows into the man who will teach us all how to be. Amen.